Congressman Robert Aderholt from the 4th District joins us on the program to discuss the 111th Congress recently reconvening in Washington, D.C., and his objectives in said Congress and how to hold off those Democrats. Congressman Aderholt, thank you for being on with us yet again. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Matt. It's always good to be with you.
Well, the 111th Congress back in session, I guess. What can you tell us about it? What's on the agenda?
Well, correctly, as you say, Tuesday, the 111th Congress was sworn in on the House and Senate side. Of course, quite honestly, there was a little bit more attention on the Senate side because of the situation in Illinois. It was pretty uneventful here on the House side. Of course, Nancy Pelosi was sworn in as Speaker of the House again, which was no surprise. And then, of course, all the members of the House were sworn in right after she was. And, of course, then on the Senate side, the senators that were up for re-election this past year were sworn into office, and those that were elected for the first time were sworn into office. But certainly the issue around the Illinois Senate seat, I think, has probably caused a little bit more, and also the Minnesota Senate seat with Al Franken.
Well, and you know, when I asked the question, I received an email, and it's a little bit longer than I shared with the listeners, but how do you interpret Article 1, Section 5 of the Constitution? This was the part of the Constitution that Harry Reid initially used to claim, listen, we don't have to seat anybody that we don't want to. My take on that, whether it's the House or the Senate, if those are the rules, then technically could not the majority party prevent members of the minority party from being seated?
Yeah, I was very surprised now I did not hear the interview as it was going on. I heard the clips from the interview from Sunday, and I was very surprised at some of the comments that the leader of the Senate said, Harry Reid. I thought they were a little bit just out of place. I mean, he made the comment the Senate can decide who they want to sit and the House can decide who they want to sit. You know, that at some point that's not the case. It's my understanding of what that dealing with whether you're qualified to be a member of that body, and if there was a question about being a member, but if you're just but the Senate cannot willy-nilly decide whether someone can sit as a member of that body and the other people be the judge, and I think that was totally out of place for him to make that comment. I don't know if he meant the way it came across, but the way that it came across, I think, was totally, because the last time I checked, it says the people of the United States of America who decide who sits in the House and the Senate.
What do you think about that, Congressman Aderholt? I know that it's on the other side of the aisle. I'll tell you, I'll just go ahead and tell you, my take on it is, as distasteful as it is, the governor of Illinois has yet to be convicted of any crime, and he is the one that is designated by the state of Illinois to select the replacement for Barack Obama when he becomes president of the United States. And there doesn't seem to be anything preventing the person that he chose from serving in the Senate. That's just my take on it.
Well, Matt, I've thought about this a lot, and I think when it comes down to it, you're exactly right. And I've taken that position because, he is the governor right now. He has not been impeached. My understanding is that he's been indicted. And so that would call into question every other decision that the governor has made. So does that invalidate every other decision as far as appointments to boards there in the state of Illinois, as signing legislation? Any decision he makes, you could question it whether it has any validity to it or not. Second of all, it also comes into question about every other appointee that comes into the Senate in the future. If someone doesn't like some action by the governor, or the governor's got some kind of cloud or potentially some cloud over his head, then does that invalidate that appointment? So you open it up to a real can of worms as far as questions on down the line of how that. So I totally agree with you, and I've thought about this a lot. And as much it is, as you say, as distasteful as it is with the governor and his appointment, but I do technically think if you look at the way the law reads, he has the appointment, and I think he should be seated.
Congressman Robert Aderholt is our guest on the Murphy program. Congressman, I know that it's standard operating procedure, it's protocol, and it's also proper decorum not to go after your freshman colleagues particularly. I'm talking about Bobby Bright and Parker Griffith. I don't want you to do that, but I'm curious your take on their decision to support Nancy Pelosi, or they could have voted present. They did not do that. They could have, I would imagine, strike some sort of deal. Given what Nancy Pelosi has done against the state of Alabama, how much she has lobbied against the refueling tanker in Mobile, lobbying for military cuts that would dramatically affect people in the state of Alabama. What's your take on how in the world, I mean, they called themselves during the campaign Blue Dog Democrats. They said they were their own men. They never would directly answer the question. And now they seem to be supporting the San Francisco-style liberalism that Nancy Pelosi represents.
Well, yeah, and let me just say, I have had met both of Parker Griffith and Bobby Bright before on a few occasions. We did not know each other well, but I've, of course, met with them this week and saw them, went by both their office to congratulate them on their win and to welcome them to the House of Representatives. And I look forward to serving with both of them. And, you know, when the election's over, you put all the election behind you and you move on and you work better for what's best for the state of Alabama and work together. So let me say that up front. But quite honestly, I think that both Congressman Bright and Congressman Griffith were both in a position where it would have been so detrimental to them to vote against the Speaker of the House. They had no choice but to vote for the Speaker of the House, because there are a lot of people that are in the same situation that the two of them were in, and that really probably had rather not voted and caused a lot of heartburn to folks back home. But quite honestly, you know, that would have put the speakers, if there had been enough of that, then John Boehner would have gotten more votes and then would have paved the way for a Republican to be Speaker of the House. And the Democrats were just not going to allow that to happen. So this was one of those issues. There was no way that they could vote president. So even if they vote president, if enough people voted president, you could still potentially have a Republican that be elected Speaker of the House.
Congressman, in your experience, and I understand that, and that's you fully explain kind of how it works. In your experience, you're in your 7th term now. You have experience being both in the minority and in the majority. Have you personally voted for a speaker that you maybe had some questions about, but you felt like maybe if I give a little, I'll get a lot for the state? Well,
I've been very fortunate. Every speaker that I've had opportunity to vote for, I have felt very good about. That not that I've agreed with every decision they've ever made, and that in past decisions, but the first Speaker of the House, of course, was Newt Gingrich, and of course, Newt is one of those people that I've always said he's one of the most brilliant people that I've ever met. His knowledge and his the visions that he have for the future is just unbelievable, because I've had a chance to work with him and talk with him, and so he was the first speaker that. But that's not to say he had his own problems. But at the end of the day, there was nothing that I felt like that. Where he stood on the issues and what he would allow to come before the House of Representatives was completely in line with not only the way that I felt was the right thing to do, but also my constituents. Same way with Denny Hastert when he was. So, of course, there's only been 2 speakers,
right.
Republican speakers, since I've been here. But both of them, I never felt there was anything that they would keep any legislation that was positive for the state of Alabama, my constituency, and trying to do what I could for the people that I serve was completely in line. So I've been very fortunate, and I think every member has to look at their own situation, see how that comes down. But in my situation, I've always felt very good about voting for the Republican speakers, because generally speaking, they have the same views and the same as most Alabamians do.
Congressman, in the few moments that we have left, and I know it's a very busy day for you, and we appreciate you coming on with us, let's talk about legislation. I know that energy supply has been something that has been on your mind. You are co-sponsor of 3 pieces of legislation to attempt to increase the supply. I read a story just this morning that indicated, adjusted for inflation, despite what the Democrats want you to believe, George Bush being an oil man, et cetera, that gasoline prices are lower today when adjusted for inflation than they were on the day of George W. Bush's inauguration, which is quite saying something. I do believe that this puts the issue of domestic supply on the back burner, but I think it makes it more important than ever that you and I continue to talk about it, because now is the time that we need to do something about it so it doesn't happen again like it happened this summer 5, 10, 15 years down the road?
Absolutely. There's no question about that. And it's one of those situations where, unfortunately, Americans have a short memory sometimes. And so they, while gas prices are down, or as they went down several years ago, then you forget about, let's not worry about domestic supply. But it is something that we absolutely have to be very vigilant, because I can see in the future. But I think this time, maybe more than ever, I'm hopeful that was, and I'm certainly was not positive the gas prices went where they did, but at least it was a signal to the Americans that we have to do something, and that we have got to quit depending on foreign oil.
Congressman, one final question concerning your trip recently overseas. I know that you were in, I guess, Africa as well as Afghanistan. I believe you were there for the Thanksgiving holiday, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I was there just after I left on the Tuesday after Thanksgiving, so I was there just right after Thanksgiving.
I'm just curious about your impressions of the state of affairs on the ground in Afghanistan.
Well, as you know, you've heard on the news of recent about the fact that we're putting more troops into Afghanistan, and that was one of the issues that was talked about while I was there in Afghanistan. And we had, of course, a briefing by the general who is McKiernan, who is, of course, the commanding general for Afghanistan. And one thing that he told us is that what they would be doing is bringing more troops into Afghanistan, and not so much as to make a big presence and so that people would look around and see American troops everywhere, because that's not necessarily what they want to do. What they're trying to do with these American troops is to try to work beside the Afghani troops, and so to teach them how that they can defend against the Taliban and how they can try to be more efficient. Unfortunately, the National Army there in Afghanistan is, weak in a lot of ways. They've not had a lot of training. They've not had one to show them the way. And so, we're sending our men and women over there who are the best, and to work alongside of them and to show them how, and to work instead of showing them, ordering them what to do, they work us alongside of them. As one of them said, they drink from the same canteen, and so that's what the purpose of this surge is. And I think it's the right thing to do.
Congressman, we appreciate it when you come on the program with us, and we appreciate you making yourself available to not only the citizens of our district, but the citizens of your district that we reach in Jasper and up there at Coleman County Way. And I know when you get into Alabama, you like to spend time in the 4th District and not in Birmingham. But next time you're in Birmingham, we'd love for you to stop by in studio and see
that
you
is
for
on
an
my
hour
list,
or so.
Matt. I do want to get by, and we've talked on the phone many times, but we've never had a chance to meet personally, so I look forward to doing that.
Well, let's do it very soon. Take care, and fend off those Democrats up there in Washington.
Okay. Thanks,
all
Matt.
Right, see you later. That's Robert Aderholt, Congressman, 4th District, State of Alabama, and very, very welcoming and open, unlike some congressmen around the state. And hey, don't think I'm talking about Davis. Davis is all right by me. Artur, that's okay. He can ignore us for a while. We'll get him back in studio eventually. Bobby Bright, Parker Griffith, you can't ignore us forever. All right, Frida Lucas is not ignoring the traffic scene. WAPI On Demand Traffic. Take it away, Frida.